are you alone?
Yeah. Is everything
Okay.
okay?
Um, I just want you to maybe like sit down or something. Because there's something I need to tell you that I don't want you to. Um, that you're probably gonna get pretty upset if I tell you.
Okay, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm sitting down.
Um, I just found out that your parents had an accident and they they didn't make it. Um, they're they're dead. Uh, I I don't know. I don't know what to say. Are you there? Are you?
Yeah.
Uh, um, it was a car accident. It was you know raining and they went off the road and it's
Okay,
yeah.
we can stop now.
Okay, I don't know. Sorry. Anything?
What?
Anything?
Oh, it was so weird. Are you still recording?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I was actually really upset right before you called. Like I
Oh,
was,
really?
yeah, like or I wasn't really upset, but I was like, I was reading my book and everything. I was just like waiting
Mm-hmm.
for it and just waiting and waiting and getting like feeling the feeling I feel like I would get, when you would actually tell me, but the anticipation,
Yeah.
was just so like much, and then finally the phone rings and I pick it up, and it's like right when you say the word, even when you said the word parents, all of a sudden it all went away. It was so weird.
Wow. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't do anything wrong. I mean,
Oh
I don't
no,
know.
no, you did everything right. That's the thing. Like it felt like a humongous experiment, and I like, you know, I thought like at the most I would feel nothing. I would feel a little
Mm-hmm.
sad, but like it would be just like a shadow in comparison to what I'd really feel. But like
Mm-hmm.
I felt the complete opposite, which I wasn't expecting.
Hey, that's good. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean? Um, I didn't know how to say put. You know, I how to say dead. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe they died. Maybe they died is saying. Maybe saying they died is better. But I was like, I feel
Mhm.
that weird that I was like, they're dead. I
Yeah.
don't know. I hope it
Well, it's
wasn't too
because
much.
like I think if like if this were real or something and you knew before I did for some bizarre reason, like
Mm-hmm.
it would be like a constant like parade of questions, like how do you know this? What's going on? Like and you maybe you saw it on the news or
Yeah.
something, or or
Yeah.
like my sister told you somehow to to get in
Mm-hmm.
contact with me, like just like the plausibility or the reality of like you telling me, you know. So and just
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just and there was that too. But I was wondering. I mean, I did what I would do. I would want to make sure that you were braced in some way. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah.
don't know.
You
I mean,
yeah, and
obviously that's.
you've done that before to me too, like with when you've had bad news to bear, and I always get
Hmm.
and maybe it's just a reflection or I don't know, like anytime you do have bad news to bear, you always make it honestly seem a lot worse than it actually is, before you tell me, and I always get like
Yeah.
I get so upset when you tell me to sit down or something, and in this case like if
Oh,
it were
really?
real, yeah, in this case if it were real like that kind of info would be like appropriate for it. But anytime you have in the past, like, are you sitting down? I need to tell
Hmm.
you something, and it has been
Yeah.
bad, but it wasn't like earth shattering news.
Yeah. No, that's. Well, yeah. Well, good. I mean, at least I don't know. Maybe one day the news will be pretty bad. I don't know. But
I know.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. But that's good. No, I mean, are you happy with
Yeah,
what
yeah. I'm just
the
like,
result? Oh, good.
yeah. I'm just wondering how it'll, cut together, or like how, it's interesting, just how the, the actual testing of it came out, So,
Hmm.
I don't know. Like,
Well,
it's
I
interesting
mean,
because, like, I wonder how I'm going to treat it in editing, too, because, like, the other one where I actually am emotional with the lack of the phone call, like, me just getting myself upset.
hmm
Like, when I cut it, I, cut from, like, anytime I would go to actually start crying, and in my head I knew was, like, when I was actually thinking of the death, I would cut to a close-up of the same shot and put it in black and white, and it ended up
hmm
looking cinematic, even though in my original conjuring of it, it was bland, and like
yeah.
not that at all. So like in the end, it still became like that kind of image. And I'm just wondering how this is going to come out, in
Yeah,
comparison. So
it could be. I mean, I think it is. Because don't you talk about the fact that you're going to do this at some point?
yeah,
Like, in your confessional? I mean, I think it's interesting to build to that. And then I thought it would either, I think so much of it depends on what mood you're in. You know what I mean? Like me, like different things hit me differently at different times.
mhm,
But I think it is interesting that you talk about it, it's referred to, in the interview or whatever that you have with me. And then I don't know. There's a lot of build up to it, so I feel like inevitably it could only be that. I mean, you had thought about it so much, you had kind of prepared yourself.
mhm,
It's almost become like, just another step. It's another part of the process. So I feel like it's less affecting in a way because it's just like the editing or the shooting. Oh, and then there's the part where Chris calls me and tells me my parents are dead. So it's like, I think it makes sense that, and it's kind of a good exercise in
mhm.
just kind of, you've been talking about it and kind of thinking about it, and then finally, maybe you worked something out, but kind of, I don't know,
No, yeah,
but
like, well, it's
mm,
also like just the thoughts going through my head right now. Like, I feel like kind of pretentious saying it, but like in my actual proposal, like I quoted Freud, and he
mm,
was part of like why I was making this, and he said like in a quote somewhere like, to endure life you have to prepare yourself for death, or something like that.
mm-hmm.
So, and it feels
Yeah.
like this was like the ultimate, test of that. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
Um,
think it's good. Yeah, I think that's good results. I would like to. What does your face look like when I tell you?
I mean, like, it's weird. I wasn't looking at the camera as much as I thought but I
Mm-hmm.
would. But, like, it was basically as soon as you said parents, like, a smile slowly crept up on my face. Which, like, and then I smiled even more because I realized how demented that probably looked.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
uh, but,
No, that's good.
yeah.
I think that's really good.
Hmm.
But yeah, do you want to about doing the asking the questions?
Hmm.
I didn't know if you wanted to like send me them or something,
Hmm.
or just tell me them and then I'll write them down or something.
No,
You
yeah,
know.
I can send them to you, and what I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to ask you, like, ask the questions, but kind of also, like, what I did to you, like, if
Mm-hmm.
something comes up in your head that, like, you want to ask, because, like, I only had, like, 3 or 4 questions, but I ended up asking you a bunch because the way you answered made me think of something else that I thought was interesting or wanted to elaborate more or
Yeah.
something. So if you find
Mm-hmm.
yourself, feeling that as well, just go crazy, and you don't even have to think of it in the the framework of the character I create, you can just do it as yourself, and I'll try to make it
Oh,
work.
I was thought maybe I could be horror hostish too, but never
You can be
mind.
a horror host if you want, but you have to
Just
be
to
the
keep it
Chris Shields horror
consistent.
host. So.
Yeah, and the only other thing I was gonna say was we should try.
Oh yeah, no, I've totally had that problem before. So, yeah. Am I on speakerphone? Oh, okay. Mhm. Cool. Okay, cool. Well, actually, yeah, maybe I could just tell you the questions then, and we can just keep going. I'm gonna stop. I hear it.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna start. Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Hello, boys and ghouls. This is your friend, Mr. Transylvania. Tonight on Creature Feature Theater, we have a very special guest. We have the filmmaker behind the cinematic abomination, Playing Dead, Miss Lindsay Denneberg. Or should I say, Dedenberg? Ha ha ha. Um, okay. Well, Lindsay, how are you feeling on this dreadful evening?
I'm feeling great. A little tired, but it's okay.
Excellent. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Birds.
Did you have any trouble finding the graveyard? I know it's a place people usually try to avoid.
Oh no, not at all. In fact, it was right around the corner. But oh shit, I dropped my cigarette. But no, yeah, I mean, pretty easy to find. You know, you just follow your heart, and there it is.
Haha, well said. Um, well, here I have a few questions for you regarding the film that we've been watching tonight, and maybe some of your attitudes and ideas that led to the creation of this horrifying masterpiece, Playing Dead. Can I ask you a few?
Okay, cool.
I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Yeah, go for it. Go shoot away.
Okay. The first question is, how would you, Lindsay Denneberg, like to die?
Um, honestly, I would rather not die, but if I had to choose, I mean, like immortality. I mean, honestly, if a vampire came up to me and says like you could be immortal, I'm like, cool, I'll do it. You know, because how many times has that opportunity come up? You know, so. But if I had to die and someone was like, you could choose any way you wanted to die, I think, I don't know, like I was thinking earlier about this, like it would be really cool to like, you know, get your head chopped off, you know, like Henry VIII style, because, you know, there's that whole thing where you're maybe alive, you know, like 8 to 10 seconds or something as the head still, or your head, and, you know, you can kind of see what's going on, and that might be an interesting perspective, and, you know, maybe it'll be painful, maybe it won't be, but it would be pretty sweet, probably.
Head chopped off. Check. ah, that raises an interesting question. That is raised in Roman Polanski's film *The Tenant*, when he mentions having his head chopped off and his arms chopped off. What would he say? Would he say, "Me and my head, me and my arms"? I guess shedding light on the question of, is a headless you, where does you reside? In your severed head, or in your severed body, or somewhere outside of that? Which actually leads me to, I'm going to skip around, leads me to another question. If your head's chopped off and you die, do you believe in ghosts?
I want to believe, like, I usually say yes, I do, but I don't know, like, I want to believe so bad, and, like, I think deep down I do. I had a lot of things happen in my life where it's kind of like, you know, Santa Claus was proven not to be real. Like, I had this dream once where I think it was right after I saw Casper in the movie theater, and I was really into it. And I dreamt, you know, that I made a ghost friend at camp, because camp is where all the action happens apparently. And I woke up and I still, you know, you're in that waking state where you think everything's real still, and I thought the ghost was still there, you know, and we were like kind of like boyfriend and girlfriend in, you know, the dream. I'm like, oh, I love this ghost. I want to keep loving this ghost. And so what I did was I tried to. This was like when we were staying at my grandmother's house, and so I started writing it letters in the garage. I was probably like 8. I don't know when Casper came out. Maybe I'm 10 even. Like I still wanted it that bad at that age, you know, ghost love. But like I started writing it letters, you know, like love letters to this ghost and leaving them on like the hood of the car in the garage, and like, you know, and then all of a sudden they started getting answered, you know, but like in a very generic, you know, way, like it was answered by a spam bot or something. And it was, you know, and then I find out it's my dick ass black sheep of a cousin, you know, who just sucked and got kicked out of it. So we don't talk to her anymore. But she messed with my head, you know, like, I guess you could say she was like, what is it, the Cyrano de Bergerac of ghost love, but she was not. She kind of broke my heart. So, and that was like, when you realize Santa Claus isn't real. So, I don't know. I still want to believe, and I think I do. It's just, I have my doubts.
Um, I, I'm gonna switch to a different voice because this one is hurting my throat. Um, I love that story and I've heard it before. I think. Do you think maybe um, it has something to do with believing in ghosts is kind of something that you hold on to, maybe a romantic idea from childhood, and there's a part of you that wants to hold on to that, but then there's another part of you, your adult mind, that knows, in reality there are no ghosts, but maybe believing in ghosts maybe is some kind of that's your and that's how your fantasy when you were a kid kind of manifested itself because you were so horror crazy. Maybe that's
Mm.
you want to hold on to that. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, ghosts, or like the idea of ghosts is like kind of like an amalgamation or a manifestation of like, that idea of true love or fantasy love or just love in general, the love that you're kind of promised, with the happy ending, the fairy tale love, I guess, and you realize as you get older it's not there. Really, like it could be there, but like you have to, you know, not that I'm lazy or anything, but you got to work at it. But like not everyone gets it anyway. So it just like it's like a big old lie sometimes. So I don't know. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
you. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. I feel bad.
No, no, that's okay. I'll make it work.
But yeah, it is. I feel that is revealed at a certain point. It is also interesting that Devon Sawa has led so many girls to believe in the supernatural. I think
Who?
Devon Sawa, the human form of Casper. I think you know, just his good looks for made girls want to believe so badly. Um,
Ironically, though, I was not really into him as a human boy, but I wasn't really into him as, the cartoony blob either, the Slimer, knockoff. I was, I think, just into the whole, maybe I was into Christina Ricci, I don't know. So, wouldn't be surprised. But,
Probably.
yeah, I don't know. It's also that, like, that weird love of, like, not actually being in love with some other person, but being in love with the person you want to be, almost. Like, I would love to be all these characters she's been, but, and because she gets these loves, and and it's kind of like it's built in that she loves these things anyway, so it's like if I am her or these other, like, romantic female characters or kind of gothy female romantic characters, going through adolescence or puberty or what have you, they it's kind of like, you come with all this set stuff. Like if I could just be in their skin for one day, I get all these things that they get. But would you really? Because it's not you. It's just like that pretending to be someone else. And when you get to pretend to be someone else, you get all the things that they want. You start wanting the things they want, and you want to want the things that they want. You know?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I like that. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to an earlier question that I skipped over. Um, I asked you how you would like to die. Now I'm gonna ask
Mhm.
you, how do you think you will really die?
Probably would get my head cut off somehow, but no. But I don't know, like the reality of it, like, and maybe it has something to do with recreating or not recreating, but creating like images of my possible death, like, like it's. I don't think it's an accident that a lot of them are like suicidal ones, because those seem like the most romantic and everything, and I worry sometimes like, will I get to like my 40s or 50s and just like really, like be at that point where I would do that. Like most likely if I were to do any, it would be the slit wrist one, just because it seems the most relaxing. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised with all the ups and downs, but probably also would get hit by a car because I don't know what the hell's going on most of the time. Like, might get hit by a car, and I have a constant fear of getting mugged, or raped or attacked in some way, shape, or form, So, you know, that seems like a possible, more plausible reality, I guess. So I don't know.
So it's either suicide, getting hit by a car, or being raped to death.
Not probably not raped to death, probably not shot, to death after an
Okay.
attack of money or something. So, God, I don't want to get raped to death.
um. Uh. I was gonna say,
How do you think I will die?
how do I think you'll die?
Mm-hmm.
Probably an animal attack. Probably
Really?
maybe a lion that's escaped from the zoo, or a hawk will swoop down and peck you to death.
I love that it's a lion. Like, I'm gonna be killed by my own zodiac sign. Like, how appropriate.
Yeah. All right, I could see you just. I have an image of you running down the street with a bird attacking you, and you trying to get it.
That makes sense because I do hate birds. And I'm not even scared by the fucking movie The Birds. It doesn't bother me. I think I just don't like them. I don't even want to give them, the power.
Yeah.
Like their own movie. It's just like it's not worth my time. I just don't like you. I don't want anything to do with you. So like the thing that annoys me most will kill me.
I hate birds. I hate birds too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot you hate birds too. So they're so fucking stupid.
Oh, I'm gonna ask you another question. Have you ever seen a dead body?
Yes, not right after being dead, but just like once. Actually, well, the first time I saw a dead body, which was at a funeral, was my grandfather's body. And, I remember very specifically, this was actually interesting, like, before we went to the funeral, like, actually right when I found out he had died, like, I was actually staying home sick from school, even though I wasn't really sick, I was just faking it, but I wanted to stay home. I was in elementary school, like 9 or 10 or something, and, my mom finds out, and she's crying and everything, and she tells me, as she's upset, of course, that my grandfather died, and I kind of, like, run to the bathroom and lock myself in there because I don't know how to react. And I just sit there, for a minute, and I didn't even really feel anything about my grandfather dying other than just kind of shock. But, like, not a lot of shock, just kind of, couldn't really feel anything. So I kind of come out, and, after my mom's friend is there, comforting her, and I come down, and I honestly, like, I always felt bad about this. I, like, hysterically fake cry, to kind of, either make myself feel better or make my mother feel better. Like, I fake cry, in front of them. And then, then we, I feel like I honestly had put on enough of a performance, where I didn't have to do that anymore, and I still didn't hit me at all. And then we went to the funeral, and, I remember very specifically my grandmother being upset and complaining that they had trimmed his mustache too much, or they shaved his mustache off, and he was, like, known for his mustache. He looked like that guy, the really handsome guy from Cocoon, so he definitely needed his mustache. But I remember touching his body, and it was being really hard and just being freaked out by that. But, like, I actually didn't really mourn the loss of him until, like, maybe a week later, or maybe even months or years later, because I knew him very well, but, it just didn't really register. And, I didn't feel like I had lost anything. I always felt a weird guilt about not losing anything, or not, like, actually feeling grief. I always felt guilt about, not feeling grief, so, yeah. So, yeah, I've seen a dead body, I guess.
That's interesting. That you talk about. I felt a similar thing where I feel afraid that I don't know how. I was always afraid that I wouldn't react the right way to finding out, that someone died, or that I wouldn't be able to cry, and in reality, I wasn't able to. When my grandfather cried, I didn't really I mean, when my grandfather died, I didn't really cry, you know. When my uncle, you know, died, I didn't really cry, you know. And I felt the same way. Only a couple years later did I really start to feel loss about my grandfather. And I think maybe it has something to do with when they die, it's so. I mean, they're the focus of attention, and it's very immediate. And in a way, the idea of them is very present. But I think as years go on, and that's the time when you actually feel the loss because they're not there, you know, and you have to experience life without them, you know, and it really sinks in. And yeah, so I relate to that.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I don't know, it's just like, yeah.
Here's a question for you. Would you rather be uh, marginally? Would you rather live in obscurity and no one know who you are or care, or and live a very long life, or would you rather die, live a very short life, die, and be known, you know, forever after that, be immortal, you know, in a way, you're the idea of you, the image. Would you you understand what I'm saying? Like one or the other, like either live in obscurity and live a very long life and die and then be forgotten, or you know, live in obscurity and die and then be remembered, but you live a much shorter life. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's interesting because usually, like, because that question has been asked, like, people in different forms. It's more like it doesn't really, measure, the level of, obscurity or, attention or fame or whatever, but it measures more, like, would you rather have a long, or no, a short happy life or a long miserable life? But it's interesting that you ask, more about, like, other people remembering you and, the memory. And it's like that's definitely a hard question because I don't believe in the whole, like, I'm going to be immortalized through my image. I feel more that I just kind of like controlling my image while I'm around to control it. But it would be nice to be remembered, but I think I'd much rather have a long life, because I feel like, honestly, that's the reality I live in now. And I don't really have a problem with it. I'd rather have all these personal experiences, and it might be because I'm getting older and I'm becoming not more introverted, but much more into being, this sounds still hermit-ish, but into being by myself, or into doing my own thing and, like, kind of enjoying myself and not living through others.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, like, if you had a gun put up to my head, like, you have to choose one or the other right now, I'm like, okay, I want to keep on living, so.
Oh, I'd love to see that as well.
What would you do?
Um, I don't know. Because I feel the same way. I don't really feel that I'll be immortalized. I mean, I would rather just keep living, honestly, because I have no access. I mean, when I'm dead, I'm dead. I have no knowledge or access or consciousness I could enjoy being known. You know what I mean? In any way.
Yeah, who gives a shit?
Fuck it, man. But, yeah, I would rather just live a long life. I guess it's weird, though, we put these things in these black and white, you know, terms like this. I think because I think questions about death become things like that that are very very black and white, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the reality is, you know, you just will live and be known in some capacity by people and die at an unspecified time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of playing into that last question I asked you. If you could write your own obituary, what would be maybe generally what it would say, or at least some points that it would make about you and your life, or any wisdom you'd like to give, you know, from beyond the grave in your obituary, you know.
Yeah. It's weird because, like, hearing that question now, my reaction to it is very similar to like actually putting credits at the end of a movie for like I'm making or something, because like I don't like crediting myself with a bunch of shit like producer, executive producer, blah 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 blah. Like I don't want to give myself a lot of credit for anything. You know, I feel like everything's there, and I feel like I owe so much to other people for helping or influencing or anything. So I just, and when it comes down to actually typing things down, you know, even with the special thanks, I want to like name everyone, you know, which kind of feels bad sometimes because it feels like if I just put everyone, who am I really thanking, you know? But I don't know, like, so with my obituary, like I wouldn't want to give myself any credit really for anything, you know. I wouldn't. I think, I don't know, it feels like a cop out to say I wouldn't want an obituary at all, but it feels like, you know, it'd probably be like a Facebook invite or something. So, it's just like, you know, from this time to this time, it would be listed under, you know, like frat party or something, or what would it be? What else do they have on there? I'm trying to think. I don't know, like, what are other Facebook event types? Like, pool party or slumber party? Probably be a slumber party, you know.
Potluck.
I think I'm. What?
Potluck.
Potluck, yes, it would be a potluck, you know, and then I wouldn't have to bring the food, of course, you know, that would be great, you know. Or you could eat my body, like, it could be a cannibal event, you know, or it could be like the cook's the thief's wife and lover, blah, 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 you know, that would be interesting. I'd love to have everyone just eat my body, you know, after I'm dead. So, because I don't want to, you know, it's weird. Like, I always joke that I don't want to get cremated because then it makes it impossible to come back as a zombie. But, you know, it's weird. Like, it also, I think deep down just makes me uncomfortable to know that my body would just be gone. Like, I'd rather, you know, it feels like the act of decomposition is a way for your body to say goodbye to things, almost, like in its own slow way, and burning it up, you know, kind of, you know, speeds it up, and I don't know, it just honestly freaks me out more than, you know, actually the death at all, you know, just to get, like, destroying the body freaks me out. So, to the point where it's not even a body at all anymore. So, but as far as the obituary goes, I mean, I'd probably say Lindsay Denneberg. Lindsay Denneberg, she loved too much, I don't know. She made good shit. No, I don't want it to be jokey. That would suck. Who wants to have a sarcastic obituary?
There
Yeah.
are people out there.
What do you what would yours say?
What would mine say?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it would just say probably, you know, he was a friend, pretty nice guy. Yeah, cool guy. I don't know. You know, had some good ideas. You know, I don't know. He died. He died as he lived, and I don't know what that would mean. But
Yeah. You know, it might be good because they always say, like, you know, they were a mother or a father or, you know, husband or wife or whatever, all these things that me and you have talked about that are like these milestones in people's lives that, you know, that if you haven't accomplished, your life hasn't been worthwhile or worth living, it seems, you know, by society standards, at least by, you know, mainstream society or whatever you call it. But, you know, and I wouldn't want to put, like, filmmaker or whatever, or artist, you know, because that would be, you know, kind of stupid, I think. But, you know, like, maybe even to the point where it's just, like, the smallest little things, like, she liked macaroni and cheese and pizza, and why is it about food? And, like, she liked these movies, and she liked this, like, but then it becomes, again, like, this is kind of creepy, becomes, like, Facebook update status things, like, you know, so it's just, like, no matter what, you're kind of turned into this weird bastardized list of, you just turn into a list, no matter how genuine you try to be about it, you're just a bunch of stupid words that don't mean anything anymore.
yeah, I think that's very true. I agree with that a lot. It feels, in life and in death, it feels like we are reduced to a bunch of stupid words that don't really mean anything and a bunch of lists. And I feel more and more all these things kind of block our access to our own humanity, in a way that we have to so identify ourselves and buy all these things. That's the definition of like who we are now, is like our tastes have essentially become the definition of who we are, or the defining thing. The defining characteristic is our taste, whereas we're human outside of that, beyond that, in a different way. And I agree with what you said about you wouldn't want it to just be artist, filmmaker. I mean, it feels like a lot of times that's the most important thing to me and you, but I feel like that's really wise, because I know that I struggle with that now, to see myself outside of that and just be like, I am just a person, I'm just a human, and how can I love myself, be okay with myself, live my life? Yeah, I want to make my work and do these things, but that's not it for me. You know what I mean? I mean, it is in a way. It's it for what I want to do. Do you think there's a connection between fame and death, or glamour and death?
Well, it's weird. Like, I mean, there could definitely be an immediate connection, especially like when someone young dies that's famous. Like, their fame goes tenfold because they're gone. You've lost everything, like Michael Jackson or Princess Di, or like any of the the glamour and everything, and all of a sudden their entire life becomes a tragedy, a beautiful tragedy that like an A&E special about. It's actually kind of weird. Like, one of the fantasies I used to have was my own A&E biography. Like, who the fuck wouldn't want that? So, but then I watch A&E biographies again, and I'm just like, God, I don't want this anymore. It's kind of nice and liberating, but it's definitely a guilty pleasure that I used to have. So
I think that makes sense, and I think in a way there is the desire to see your life presented in that way, like say an A&E biography, or a documentary like about you or something like that, because in that way it simplifies your life and it imposes a narrative on your life that gives it meaning and structure, and it kind of eliminates all the boring parts and all the terrible, really confused parts. And if it mentions the terrible parts, it's brief and it's moving towards something else. So, and that's how we perceive everyone else's life that isn't our own. All famous people, we see them through these documentaries and through these ways that their lives are represented in these structured narrative forms that have a point. But the only life we don't have, that we can't see in that way, kind of is our own. So I feel like to reduce kind of the pain and the confusion and the fear, a lot of times we want to imagine seeing our life presented that way, because then at least we'd have some kind of perspective on it. That's how I've felt.
yeah, it might be interesting, and please totally feel free to say no to this, but like I was just thinking, like the fact that we know each other pretty well, more than other people, like kind of whoever dies first has to make the obituary video for the person.
No, that's fine. I don't think that's crossing the line. I thought you were going to say we should make our own A&E biographies.
Would you think that'd be crossing the line?
I think it would be a funny exercise to see what would we say about our lives, what would our obviously like our, what would it be called, our fault, we would fail to be objective really, but what would our attempt be, and what kind of, which romance would we choose, and what is the, that's a really interesting way, I feel like, to kind of bring to the forefront your myth about yourself and how you really see yourself, which is probably very different than other people see you.
Yeah. No, I think that would be so much fun, and like I actually notice a thing about myself, like I respond to things cynically when I'm embarrassed by them, but it totally is still something, that I think about. It's weird. It's like I don't like want it as much as I once did, but like just the curiosity now, it becomes less of a want and more of a curiosity. So.
Hmm. I feel like, yeah, there's and even with like, ideas about like celebrity, I feel like the desire is there for that, or at least to be remembered or represented in a certain way, because, you know, in a lot of ways, the people you see on television and, that are just like saturate your life when you're younger are the most real, to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you spend more time with Jim Carrey than you spend with, you know, uh, extended family. You know what I mean? And it's
Oh yeah.
very real. And, and I think in a way your family, your immediate family and some friends are the closest thing you have to like, they're like celebrities to you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then the rest of your family is like, celebrities in the, you know, popular sense of the word. And then for you,
Mhm.
as you've talked about before, these monsters, you know.
Mhm.
Um, do you want to elaborate on that as your monster family ties?
My monster family ties, yes. Um, it all started when I looked at I think I remembered and looked at the picture of me and my father over Halloween, when he was dressed up as Dracula and I was dressed up as Cinderella, and I actually really remember being really, really pissed off that Halloween because I was Cinderella. I had been like, you know, I realized I had been cute things, like princesses and ballerinas and everything up until like the age of 5, and then and like something happened, and I think it was when I realized, I was gonna die. I was like sitting in my room, you know, like and all of a sudden it just hit me like I was gonna die, and I was like, I just started crying, and like it was very bizarre being surrounded like all these pink things and unicorns and glitter and mermaids, and I'm crying, realizing I'm gonna die, and I think I remember my parents coming in and comforting me, and them just having to be like, yeah, we're sorry, that's what's gonna happen, and but it's not gonna happen for a long time or something like that, whatever they needed to say to, you know, soften the blow. And then like after that, I think that's like when I started like, I want to be scary things for Halloween. I want to be a witch, or I want to be, a ghoul, you know. And then um and then I'm like, what? I think it was a weird test I did to myself, and I was probably like 10 or something. I'm like, I want to be something nice this year. I'll be Cinderella, like, and that's when I started gaining weight and everything. So I'm like, I'm going to try to make myself beautiful, you know, um, and I'll do it like with Cinderella this time. And I'm Cinderella, and it was like I was so just pissed off, like trick or treating, like no one was scared of me. No one was like, "Oh, awesome costume! You're so scary! Ooh, like I'm so scared of you!" Like no one's scared of Cinderella, you know. And so I was just kind of bummed. And then my dad was Dracula, and he was getting all the attention, and I'm just like, I want to be Dracula. It's not fair, and that was probably the most I ever wanted to be like my dad and follow in his footsteps. Like, I want to be Dracula too. So, um, so then, like, and that kind of triggered, like how I started seeing monsters, and maybe I'd seen them like that all along, but it's just like I became more aware of it, that like, Dracula and Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster. I personally like just referring to the monster as Frankenstein because that's what we know him as, and that's how it's going to be. So, but especially like the Mummy, and Mummy I wasn't that attached to. He was like the cousin that you don't really talk to that often, but he was like, he had a lot of stories or something. But and the Invisible Man was like the cool uncle who could do a bunch of tricks. And actually, Creature from the Black Lagoon was one of my top favorites, probably even before Frankenstein, because he was just awesome looking, and he was just, he was like kind of like the underdog, not as popular, but he was like the, uncle, like who, introduced you to, all the heavy metal and everything. And, Dracula was the pretty suave, like, I guess he was like the father or something, and then Frankenstein, you know, I don't know if like Frankenstein was a relative or if Frankenstein is me, probably me, but they all seem like they're my family much more so than, you know, I'm not gonna say my real family because like that's not what I'm getting at. I mean more like, you know, any image of like, you know, the nuclear family, you know, like say Full House or something, or, you know, like I didn't feel like they're my family. I felt like these monsters were my family. And it was also like I really realized how much I love them. Like when Pizza Hut was throwing this promotion thing where for Universal Monsters, and they had special cup lids of like the monster faces, and I had to have them all. I had to collect them all. Like those were my prized possessions, like these monster lids, you know. And like I completely forgot about him for a while until I watched the trailer to Creature from the Black Lagoon. I'm like, why did I love him so much? I'm like, oh, because he was my favorite cup lid. Like what the fuck was with this cup lid? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that that makes sense, and kind of a digression. Isn't it interesting that Frankenstein's monster um, doesn't that his name is contingent on, or he's defined by his creator. You know that he doesn't have a name. You know, you know what I
Mhm.
mean. That he has to be referred to. You know, that he's and in a way like infers like he doesn't possess himself, or he's not in charge of his own being, because he's not. Yeah, he's Frankenstein's monster. He's the property of and the creation of, you know, Frankenstein. You
Mhm.
know, which I think that's interesting. But I do also like to just refer to him as Frankenstein because it's more, you know, casual. You know.
Yeah. It's like his nickname, or like that's what it's like. I don't call you Christopher. I call you Chris. So.
Yeah. Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess we could get like a little heady or something about like how, you're defined by your creator, but that seems like, you know, we don't spell it out for anyone or anything. Like that's pretty much, you know, I don't know, it's an interesting thought, but to elaborate on it would be foolish because everyone's, you know,
Well,
reaction
yeah.
to
I
that
mean,
would be different.
I guess that is the idea. You know, that he is this creation, this kind of abomination, and by, you know, created by Dr. Frankenstein, who is trying to play God. And the maybe then the implication, or what that really leads to, is the real horror is that not that, you know, you shouldn't play God, or because it's not because it's blasphemous, you know. You shouldn't play God and can't play God because you're not strong enough to be God. You know? Like, that's why Frankenstein's monster goes so terribly wrong, is not because just, you know, because of this blasphemy. It's because, you know, Dr. Frankenstein is just too weak. He's just not God. Any attempt to do this won't lead someplace good because you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough to do this. And it I don't know, I never really, I'm not as familiar with Frankenstein or as into it, you know, as you are. So kind of
Hmm.
thinking about it is really interesting to me right now. I don't know, it kind of just opened up in my mind something that I'm going to think about more. I can't really articulate right now.
Have you
But
ever read the book?
no. Oh, wait, I
This
read like a condensed version of it. I've definitely read, and no bullshit, I know I've read at least parts and a condensed version of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I read a condensed version too. I read it felt like a tiny book in comparison to Dracula, but
Yeah.
because I remember that was all. I wish I had footage of that. I probably still do, but it was in high school. We had to, do a book report, and we had a list of books, and it was like between Dracula and Frankenstein for me, and maybe that was the moment of truth. I chose Frankenstein, and I
Mm.
read it, and it's funny. Before I get into the book, I actually did the presentation dressed up as Frankenstein, showing a film that I made of the book version of Frankenstein, you know, that I made. I should probably find that footage. It's pretty interesting. But because the Frankenstein monster, or Frankenstein is, not green with a flat top head, which I prefer honestly, but he's just like this yellow humanoid creature who's like, got long black hair and purple lips and everything, and is actually like really sexual when he, you know, starts coming to life. Like, he talks about like, his like very rhythmic breathing and skin and everything, and it's just like, because it didn't feel sexual until like, when I made the movie version of it for myself and like had my friend narrate it, or actually I narrated it, and it was ridiculous, and just it came out, very sexual. So
That's interesting because I never have ever, seen Frankenstein in that way, and I don't know how many, but that is obviously must be an aspect of it, I'd like to, think about that more. I know I've seen that footage of you dressed as Frankenstein during that presentation.
oh really? I didn't know I showed that to you.
Yeah,
Man.
at least a bit of it.
Yeah, where I had like the black wig and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't know I showed you that. I gotta find it. But well,
Yeah.
it's also interesting because like, it's also like a big feminist argument and everything. Like, the act of sex and everything being just procreative and not about, enjoyment, and it just being about, the conception and the birth and all this other crap, and
Mhm.
then, the actual act of creation, you know in the book, and this is my read, of course, is that it, and I didn't even realize it was that read until just now, like, was sexual and sensuous and everything, so like, but, you know, it's just like reading that kind of type of, birth as sexual, like the actual birth itself being sexual. Like, no one actually thinks, getting your vagina ripped open with a human coming out of it is sexy. So,
Yeah.
but,
I mean, some people,
from,
but not a lot.
yeah, they're out there. So, I want to believe, but,
Maybe
No.
in that way, in Frankenstein, the act of, the creation is, has a sexual, I don't know, dimension to it. And maybe in a way, you know, there's a creation in general, and like, in your work and what you make is sexualized in a way for you. Maybe that you find some kind of pleasure in that is somehow connected to sex,
Mhm.
because in a lot of ways your work is very there's a Frankenstein type dimension to a lot of your work.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting. I think I've realized it more and more, and maybe this is coming to like, with the surface more now. But like I feel like I put a lot of sex in work and everything just because like, I look back at all my sexual experiences and none of them have, been that enjoyable or interesting really, and it's not for lack of trying on my part or the other person's part, it's just like, you know, I feel like I haven't done it enough either to, really enjoy it, or maybe it's weird. I think it has a lot to do, like, even, if you're in love with the person and the sex, but for some reason the sex isn't good, you kind of imagine it as amazing anyway. I don't know if, like, that is like that for other people. Like, at the time it's amazing because you love the person. But then I look at it objectively now, and I'm like, wow, sex was, like, not really that great. I think I was just really in the moment and lying to myself that it was awesome. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Well, maybe because in engaging, in like, sex with another person, like there's you only have so much control. You know what I mean? Because you're collaborating with someone else. But a lot of times, when you make a certain kind of work, you have complete control, and you can
mhm.
satisfy yourself in a certain way.
Yeah, and I think that also relates into like the other project and just the other side, like the whole, you know, submission and rape fantasy, like that desire, to have a lack of control, because I honestly am just so tired of like control, and I do have
Yeah.
that in the, like, while having sex, I feel like I do have to like kind of initiate things or control things, just to either keep it interesting or to keep them interested, you know, and it's just exhausting, and it takes me out of it, and then I end up not enjoying it at all, you know, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so.
I hear you.
I don't know. I wish that like it could be easy where it's like when you know that portion of your mind is doing that, you could just kind of shut it off, you know, and I'm sure sometimes you can, and unfortunately, you know, in past situations when it has been good, it's been related to, you know, drinking or something for me, or getting high, and I hate it that
Mhm.
that is what, you know, it's very Annie Hall syndrome or something, you know, like you're at the other end of the room, where are you? So, but, I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like we've covered a lot of good stuff here. I don't know if there. I'm trying to think of anything else.
Mm-hmm.
What would you is what would you what do you find more appealing?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, would you death? Something, I don't know, a film about death or a film about two people falling in love?
Hmm.
But they're both the ideal. What would you rather see? They're both the ideal versions, like the best catered to your taste, the best uh, versions of those respective films that could possibly exist. Which would you rather see? The ultimate film about death or the ultimate film about love?
Oh man, such a good question. Because, like, my gut says, about love, but to me, like, it feels like in my framework, I feel like I could tell myself right now I'm being closed-minded about it, but just like, sometimes like the ultimate movie about love falls or is really about death, and that's like a little, that is too black and white. Like, remember, that's how I used to say, like, how I thought things, it's like, things are just about sex and death, and that's it, or love and death, and that's it, it's like, but no, it's not about that, and there's always, like, more to it, it can't be that black and white, so, I don't know, like, I would say I want it to be love, I feel like I need it to be death, so, but that seems trite as well, so, I don't know, I also just am very curious I wonder, like, what the ultimate movie would be, with love or death, like, who would be in it, like, who would be in the cast of the death movie, and who would be in the cast of who would direct these movies?
What do you think the greatest? Well, this might take some time to think about, but what do you think the greatest? Um, is there any artist or in any medium that comes closest to sharing your views or representing, either sharing your views or representing, or that deals with death like in a way that you feel closest to? And that may be the same question for romance.
I don't know, like, it's hard to say, like, there's one artist or director or whatever, because it feels like, they had certain films that did it, but, like, the rest of their work doesn't do it, so, like, it would be not right.
Yeah.
I always felt like, Edward Scissorhands I was so close to and everything, because it was this beautiful, tragic love, and, I feel it has to be tragic. Like, I'm not like a Romeo and Juliet junkie or anything, like, but, like, recently, like, My Demon Lover has been my, perfect love movie like that. It definitely has moments where I'm just like, I don't know, but then it's just so beautiful. I don't know, it's just like, I love that, like, I love the love where, one of the people, it's like they love the person, but they can't, love them because they'll hurt them. And I don't, like, it's weird, in the work I'm working on right now, it does mention tragedy, like, but I do like it when, somehow, because they made some choice, that they weren't even thinking about that, it is something to say, because it was selfless or something, or some sequence of events led to they ended up getting what they wanted, and no one gets hurt and everyone gets the love, but I don't know, like, I think that's also the candy that I want as well, so.
Yeah. Do you think that you will ever do you think that you will ever be able to reconcile your a real kind of whatever this means, realistic or at least real world direct um, idea about death and your kind of abstracted romantic version of death? Are those do those it almost feels as if those two things don't even have a place where they meet. They're so kind of disconnected. I feel like I don't even know if this is a question, but I guess what I'm saying is like real death in a way has nothing to do with has absolutely nothing to do with like the death that I enjoy in fiction or in as a symbol, you know. Um,
Yeah, I agree on that one. And that, well, I guess that kind of goes back to, I think I said something where, love, like, oh no, the ghost thing, that's what I said. Like, the ghost is, like, love and everything, or it is, like, a manifestation of love. Like, this romanticized, symbolic, tragic death is, you know, just, it's not real. And neither is, like, fantasy love. But, it's where you can flip of it, or we impose glimpses on it. Like when you are in love, or you first start falling in love with someone, you're like, oh my god, this is like movie love. This is what I want. But it's not like movie love. You just see it as that.
mm-hmm.
It's like because you're not in the movie, so you are choosing to paint it that way, view it that way, making your memories look like that. So you can, I don't know, like either justify why you feel that way, I guess, or enjoy it even more. I'm just trying to make sense of it. So,
Yeah, I mean, it feels like in a way, maybe that's what is a kind of at the core of playing dead is this idea that like there's real death, and then there's the death in fictions or whatever horror related death or a romantic type of death, but that it's almost problematic that we even call them by the same name because real death is characterized by its unalterable. There's nothing beyond it. It's absolutely an end. It's defined by its finality. And fiction death is not that. Fiction death can be returned from. It has a character. It has a life in itself. It looks like something. It is something. Like fiction death is positively charged, and real death is simply defined by